Hey guys, up to now, building software products was about developing and validating risky assumptions. So, if you think of any of the big software companies like Uber, the risky assumption there was would people take rides from strangers? Or people would take rides from strangers. For Airbnb, it was people would sleep in random people's houses. And then Facebook, it is, people would connect with each other online. So the problem back then, when these companies were created, was that doing this and developing and testing risky assumptions required a lot more technical acumen than nowadays. So in this video, I'll be talking about why AI now favors the less technical ideas men or dreamers. And if you are one of these guys, how to actually use this to your advantage where before it could have been a weakness. So to understand why, we probably have to dive into, how product development is changing, what it means to be an ideas man. But before we start, if you or anyone you know wants to understand how ChatGPT or LLMs views your company compared to competitors and then ways to build trust compared to them, you can reach out to me directly at george@flashmark.com.au. Cool. So good product development was all about validating risky assumptions. And this was because of resource constraints and minimizing waste. So this book here, The Lean Startup, is a really good starting point for product development because it talks about how you can iteratively test an idea and improve it over time with small changes. So the premise is, you have your little assumption or your idea, and then you build something for the purpose of then measuring success against it and then learning and then continuing to rebuild. So build, measure, learn, right? Now, what's funny is that, nowadays, if you take that previous cycle and you just, let's actually put it down here on the document. You got build, you got measure, right? And you've got learn. Cool. So the reason that you wanted to do this is because you have resources that you need to manage and you want to make sure that you're not wasting resources. So I've worked in small teams. I wouldn't necessarily call them lean, but the way it kind of works, and I was a product manager, was, there's a product manager, there could be a designer, and then there's a bunch of engineers, then there's your manager who kind of pseudo takes on different roles whenever they feel like it. And what you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to be working in sprints where you have like an assumption that you're testing and then gathering data on it after. So then beyond that, you've got data analysts, data scientists, blah, blah, blah. So what's supposed to happen is, build, measure, learn here. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to be very lean with this process. So you build very small things, measure very small things, learn very small things, and slowly grow your product. Now, this is still good. This can still work very well and does still work very well in bigger companies. But this video is more so meant for people who aren't looking to fit in a big company, people that are looking to see what they can do in today's world nowadays. So let's take that back to any idea that you might have had previously. So let's say, and let's make up an idea, you have a business where you believe if somebody sends in a Polaroid photo, you can then send back a digital version via, a PDF or JPEG or something via email. Very dumb idea, maybe not very commercial, but we'll use that as an example. Now to test that typically, and let's say it was a product, maybe somebody had to go to a platform, enter in their address, print out some sort of a shipping label. And, these things don't sound complex, but when you actually have to develop that product that facilitates that use case, it ends up being quite a costly process in terms of like time, effort, and even money, slowly. If you've got engineers and product managers and designers working on something and you're not really sure if it's going to work, it can actually be quite wasteful. And there is still a lot of waste. There's so much waste in companies nowadays that the reason AI was invented was to make things more efficient, right? And efficiency is what a lot of people get caught up on because, people are perfectionists sometimes in nature. I know I am to a certain extent. I always want things to be more perfect than imperfect. But sometimes you just have to be a little bit more comfortable as a product manager to look for that good enough state. So what happens nowadays, and the way I'm thinking about product development, especially with AI and with vibe coding, is that it's time to go nuts. So if you think about like what venture capital used to do with founders, they used to get, and I've sat in one of these cohorts, they used to get a bunch of founders and fund them, right? And they would fund them knowing that one or two of them would eventually grow to be a unicorn. And when you've got one company that's making billions of dollars and then you're losing money on all the other companies, it washes out, right? So it's a good strategy for VC. But if you're one of those founders, you're putting all of your time and energy into that company because developing product is really hard. And really, who gets the benefit is the VCs. So what my train of thought nowadays is it's so easy to develop product. Like just the other day, I developed a little internal tool for myself, for my own purposes, and it took half a day to run locally. It doesn't have any fancy front end, only I'm using it, only I know how to operate it, only I know what it needs, doesn't have any documentation. It's actually a heaping pile of garbage in terms of product standards, but it was good enough to test my risky assumption. So as a product guy and seeing the challenges of not being an engineer and not being technical enough to develop product myself, and then sometimes having ideas and them not being worth the effort to find people to help me develop or even to take the time to develop myself, I thought it's a really interesting idea if you just treated yourself, the inventor, the ideas man, the dreamer, as your own venture capital. So what I mean by this is it's so easy to develop a product, and it's now so cheap to be wasteful because AI is incurring all of those costs. You might incur a couple of cents here and there with API calls as you develop product. Like I spent $20 the other day by accident developing one video. Oops, right? But for the most part, it's pretty cheap to consume an API, and it's also pretty cheap to have Copilot or Claude running alongside your code editor. So it's actually become really, really cheap to develop product. And what I think people should now be focused on for the first time is not about mitigating risk, but they should now be focusing on developing remarkable value. And this is where the ideas guy really comes front of mind. So there's this book, I've had it a while and I'm reading it now for the first time, and it's speaking to me a little bit more. It's called The Purple Cow. The premise of the book is that, there are so many P's in marketing. There's price, promotion, product, blah, blah, blah. And Seth Godin actually just looked at it all. He goes, every P is just like made up jargon for whatever some guy wanted to explain at that time. And he goes, I'm going to explain what marketing is with another P, and he picked Purple Cow. And the idea there was him and his family were going through, I think it was the French countryside, and they saw a heap of cows, and then they were mesmerized. And then all of a sudden, after way too many cows, the cows started becoming boring. But what would have been interesting is if a purple cow showed up. And I think that's where product development is now going to trend. Because if product is so easy to develop and so cheap, a lot of products will be developed. So as a dreamer or an ideas guy who is now facilitated by AI, it's now less of your obligation to become the guy that knows how to do things, but more of the guy that sees where the purple cows are. So if you have a genuinely interesting idea and you can't quantify commercially what the value of that idea is. It used to be the case that, the costs of actually running through these experiments in order to validate your idea was, was so much that you just wouldn't pursue the idea. And I think a lot of ideas men kind of get a bad rap for being lazy because they have all these little different ideas and, none of them were ever executed. But today, you can develop a product with an LLM, and all you have to do is know what you want to execute on. And that's where I think we're going to go a little bit into good product design or understanding value for people at scale. And that's going to be like a new methodology that's going to come about because we're so easily facilitated by AI. So now I want to talk about how the VCs and how product development and how dreamers all kind of relate, right? So we've all heard, or we may not have, but we've all heard of the term MVP, minimum viable product. And that was your first point of call if you did want to test an assumption out in the real world. And the thing with MVPs is you could test one assumption in many different ways. And you could potentially go into rabbit holes down the wrong MVP because certain data sets are biased, or maybe you didn't test it properly. So for instance, if you ask, let's say you had a great idea like, glasses that automatically turned into sunglasses just because it went dark. You had that idea, and then you didn't know how to develop it, and you sent out an email to 1,000 people, and you asked, would you buy this product? And 500 of them turn around and say yes. That's an EOI process, which technically counts as an as an MVP, but you didn't really test the riskiest assumption, which was when you develop the product, did they buy it, right? No one put any cash down. So you don't know whether that's a viable business just by people saying yes back to you, right? But with AI, you can develop software in less than a day and, pretty good software, in my opinion, good enough for MVP state, right? And this is kind of how it goes. So let's say you had one idea. Now, I'm going to say that one idea takes 1 day to develop, right? So you have 7 days in the week. So let's say 5 of those days are product development days, including Saturday and Sunday. So let's call them there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you do something different, but then Saturday, Sunday, you do product development again. So you have 7 days, and in 7 days, you could technically knock out 5 MVPs. You could knock out 7, you could knock out 14, 20, depends how crazy you are, right? But what catches a lot of founders up is they get stuck in product development stage. Now, what you could do with these other days is you could sell, find some way to sell. So depending if you like B2C or B2B products and how you'd feel comfortable selling. So there are a bunch of different avenues. If you are a organic content creator, pick a product that works well with selling via that channel. If you are, an email marketer or a paid advertiser, pick a product that you can sell with that. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to come reverse engineer that idea and say, well, you still go by that fundamental concept with that founder fit. It's like, what product could I sell is really the bigger question, because nowadays you can develop whatever you want. If you put your mind to it, you will make that product, right? So for me, I like B2B. I like B2B because it's a little bit more numbers based. You can reach out to business owners with emails. If you're watching this from a cold email, hello, I'm George. And it's a little bit more commercial. So if somebody tells you that they don't want to buy your product, in my mind, it's a little bit easier to fix that versus, throwing out a lot of advertising or doing a lot of organic content and not having a lot of data back. I'm a data guy. So B2B is what I like. So for that reason, let's say that I say, instead of sell, I shouldn't do that, I just do emails, something like that. So you now have a process of building product. So you building product with an MLM, with an LLM. If you want me to make a video on building products with LLMs, just leave a comment below. Do something to alert me to the fact that you're watching this and I'm being vague. Help me out. So you can build a product with an LLM, larger language model, so it doesn't have an. And then number 2, you sell the product via your channel of choice. Now, what's very funny now is that if you can build any product, and people are going to be building products like crazy, selling becomes the challenge, and selling always has been the challenge, because even if you had the perfect product and you created it in the middle of the desert, no one would buy it, right? So marketing and sales is always going to be the biggest challenge for newer businesses. The way I think everyone should be going about developing product is understand whether you can build it, understand whether you can sell it with the right messaging, the right channel, but maybe I've written the wrong here. Build it with a LLM, sell it via the channel of your choice, and then 3, sell it as a service, right? So before big scalable product that serves thousands or millions of people every day, try to sell it to one guy as a service and use your crappy little back-end product to fulfill their needs. So for instance, I'm developing a product at the moment from my service, and my service is all about large language model optimization, or understanding your brand narrative compared to your customers on LLMs like ChatGPT. So for instance, if you try to understand what the LLM is trained on based on your brand, you can see how ChatGPT advocates for your brand compared to your competitors, right? This takes a lot of work, and it doesn't take a lot of work because this is a hard product to build, but it takes a lot of work to understand the nuances of what the customer wants, how exactly you should be comparing to competitors without implementing bias. Prompts are part of my backend, so defining which are the best prompts that give me the best data, and then, iteratively testing. So it's really good to have a couple of customers that aren't just complaining about UI, or where do I submit a ticket for, bugs, or, just little things like my login won't work. So just don't do it. Do everything as a service. Get one guy, send them an email and say, hey, I built this thing. If you tell me you want it, by the end of the week, I will give it to you. And that's business to a certain extent. I have value that you want. I'm the only guy that can do it. If you want me to do it, I'll do it for you. It doesn't have to be instant right away because no one else is doing it, because you're developing a new product in your mind for the long term, but you're just selling it as a service. And I think a lot of good money is going to come this way because people are going to start focusing on helping their neighbor. Like, if you're, like my dad has a business, now he's got a couple, and he might just have little challenges that I could go in and solve for him. And I go, hey dad, I noticed that you don't listen to your employees that much. What if I developed a little AI tool that took journal entries from all of your employees, because you're time poor and you don't have the time to listen to them, and all it did was it just aggregated it, and every week you would get a summary of what the biggest problem in your company was. I'm sure you could charge somebody $5 for that a week, right? So do it. It's free for you. It doesn't cost you much to consume the API with OpenAI. If you are so scared of building product, you could actually do that idea within the UI of ChatGPT. A lot of AI tools are going to be just a series of prompts that are going to develop really nice insights, because AI does analysis better than any human on the planet, right? So sell it as a service. Just be real dumb about business. And then what happens is, over time, solve the problems that suck to you, right? Like, I send out a lot of emails and I need to personalize a lot of emails. So I really don't like sending out 1,000 non-personalized emails. So what I was doing was I was using LLMs to personalize my emails with the good insights that I was finding through the reports. And I was finding that, by going and manually doing these reports, it would take a lot of time. So in the end, I was like, you know what? If I take a day away from hitting my goal of sending out this many emails per day, I could just build a tool that would help me. And I'm pretty sure that the tool that I've built that is helping me generate these reports, personalize them, and then help me send the emails, I'm pretty sure that same tool could be used in another business, and they would pay me for it. I'm not selling it right now, but just because I only built it to help me. And that's the intention of AI. AI is supposed to take away all of that tedious, repetitive work and be your friend. I put it very similar, like what we're going through now is very close to the Industrial Revolution, like when factories and machinery really got popularized. So that's what's happening now. There used to be a lot of more artisanal jobs, people working with their hands, and that's kind of what entering numbers in an Excel spreadsheet is. If your job at the moment is entering numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, that's like a guy repairing shoes or making shoes by hand. They don't exist anymore because machines got made. And this AI might be new for everyone, but the Industrial Revolution happened and the way people work changed. We will find some other role for humans. It just won't be what we've been doing for the last couple of decades. Now, obviously, after you say sell it as a service, you have sell it as a product. As a product, and I'll probably make that step 4 so it makes sense. So you've got build it with an LLM, you've got sell it via your channel of choice, make sure you sell it as a service, and then you can sell it as a product. And your channel of choice might not even need to change. Like, who cares if, you're sending somebody a login link versus if you're asking them if you can invoice them, right? That's just optimization for your time at that point. Because if you could service everyone with your service and it didn't cost you any time, let's say employees. Employees are a really good way to optimize your time because you just push your work onto somebody else, right? So that's the basic principle. You can build anything you want with an LLM, so don't worry about whether you can or can't. You can, or you could get somebody to do it. In fact, here's a call to action. If you want to pay me to build something for you, I'll do it for you, right? Let's scope out the product. I'll build it for you. It's a service that I'm now offering via the channel of YouTube, right? I've just invented it now. But if you're an ideas guy, you can do this. I'll just delete this. You're an ideas guy, you can do this process every week. Let's see. And then in a month, you have developed 5 ideas 4 times, which is 20 ideas, right? When in the history, and you've set aside 2 days for selling, right? Just focusing on outreach. Let's even say it's just cold calling. When in the history of the world have you ever been able to create 20 software products within a month ever? Like, now is the time. And the time is just ideate. It's literally just like, if you've ever been the guy that's had a boss that shuts you down because you had too many ideas, or if you've ever had like distaste because of the way things are done, all right, go put your money where your mouth is. Go develop a lot of products and try to see if you can pitch the value, which is the hardest part, to other people. If you have a social platform, see if you can advertise it. If you have a B2B product, see if you can sell it. And I guarantee you, this is the first time that a lot of people are going to realize that the tech was always the least important thing. Who cares? Like, I've never been an engineer, but I've worked with many engineers, and I've always found that the perfectionism of an engineer is what slows down the company most. And that's what's going away. I built this tool, and within the last couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, the way that agentic vibe coding works is it's gotten a lot better at delivering the final product, right? It's got a lot better at outcome. But I did notice that something that I believed required just one index.js file shot out 100 different files needlessly. And if that was an engineer, they never would, nor would they want to do that, right? The AI is following not very good practices in order to do things. Like, for example, it just creates tests. And being a little ideator product developer without a need for tests, I just like, if things break, then I just fix them. I don't care for tests. It developed a lot of tests, but it didn't develop really good tests. So what it would do, it's like, hey, does this sample CSV file upload work? And it's like, well, let's hard code some dummy data, and then let's see if that dummy data got returned. And I'm like, well, that's a dumb test. You're just asking if the thing you wrote came back. And of course it is, you wrote it. So it does have a lot of waste, but it's not wasteful for the first time. It's not like it's a person writing each of these files. It's agentic, and it's gonna get better. I know it seems wasteful right now, but who cares if it costs less than a cent to develop and you only care about outcome? So if you're an outcome driven ideator or dreamer, now is the time to take advantage of this AI revolution, which is akin to the Industrial Revolution. Treat it like you can build systems and factories like were then, previously unheard of. You know, the adage, Henry Ford, if he had asked everyone, what do you want? They would have said faster horses. This is now where you go, it doesn't matter if your idea is dumb. It doesn't matter if you don't think you can build it. The same problem is going to apply for every business, which is how to sell it. So if you just keep that front of mind and you just go build 20 ideas a month, something will eventually become a unicorn. And this is how they do VC. So they fund, let's say, 20 companies, and then after a while, this one pops off and the rest all lose money. And you can do that without any funding every single day. Maybe every night you just develop a new product and see if your friends use it or something like that. And pretty quickly, you'll find quicker ways to develop product, quicker ways to sell things, and what you're actually build, measure, learning is your business acumen. And that's what everyone should be focusing on. And coming a little bit more back to, well, now that all our resources are a little bit less constrained, how can we help the people around us? If you like that video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Again, if you want to reach out for either consulting or large language model optimization to find how you compare to your competitors for the subject of GEO or developing trust through your brand narrative, you can reach out to me at george@flashmark.com.au. Thanks.